We're back here, whole 9 yards, on a Monday afternoon here with Brandon. Super Bowl was a pretty underwhelming game. I mean, it was very one-sided. We'll just get straight into it. The Bucks ended up beating the Chiefs 31-9. It did not go how I expected it. I expected it to be more of a shootout type of game, an instant classic, kind of like Pats Eagles or one of those top five all-time Super Bowl games. We didn't really get that. I mean, the Chiefs' offense was a lot worse than we expected for sure. Mahomes, no touchdowns the first time that since I want to say like maybe even before high school football where Mahomes hasn't scored a touchdown in a game. Uh, Two picks. I mean, the general consensus is going to be the game wasn't his fault. I would agree with that for the most part. The biggest downfall for the Chiefs' offense yesterday was 100% the two backup left and right tackles. They just were completely outmatched by JPP and Shaq Barrett and that defensive line, even Vea and Sue to an extent as well. It's just, when you have your two backup tackles against the two hottest defensive ends on either team, it's tough to really to block them. I mean, Shaq Barrett and JPP were going off against, even, regular starters. And, when you have your two backups in, it's very tough. Mahomes was pressured on like at least half of his dropbacks. It was something insane like that. I mean, what were your initial reactions from the game and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I said right before the game started, I said it's going to be between the Chiefs' offensive line and the Bucks' defensive front. And going into the game, like going into the week when we talked last week about our predictions for the game, I still thought the Chiefs could, push through their offensive line struggles as long as they just held up somewhat. And I thought they would have been fine. And you saw as soon as the game started, their offensive line had no chance. I mean, they sent forward basically the entire game. I don't think they if they even blitzed, it was maybe a couple times, and because they just didn't need to, they could play four up front and seven in the back, so they could double Tyreek on every single play. Which if they weren't getting that pass rush, then I think it would have been a different game because you're probably not you're gonna keep trying to double Tyreek, but if you're not getting the pass rush, you may send a couple extra guys, which means you're probably single coverage on him. So I think that was huge for them just to start the game off like that. There was the stat that Mahomes ran like 500 yards, like. But between the time that this ball was snapped to the time he threw the ball, he ran 500 yards throughout the entire game. That just shows that, and you could see as soon as the game was happening, like every time they snapped the ball, he literally just started running backwards or running to the side because they were in his face constantly. So that was as soon as I saw that happening, I realized that the Chiefs weren't going to win unless somehow Mahomes was just like played the best game of his career, but that just didn't happen. So
Yeah. I mean, so looking at the Chiefs' game plan, so this was the least amount of times Bowles has blitzed, and I want to say like somebody said 5 years. I'm not exactly sure where they're getting that stat, but I mean, yeah, Bowles blitzed n- not that much compared to the Rodgers game, the Breeze game, the Heineke game, throughout the whole regular season so far this year. And my one of my things with the Chiefs' offensive game plan was on 52 of Mahomes' dropbacks, 48 they only had a five-man protection, so they didn't block. They didn't really block the running back. They didn't decide to, block it, have a tight end block at all. Which I'm not saying have Kelsey be a protecting blocker for the game, but to only just to leave your two backup tackles on an island and say, hey, you need to shut down JPP and Shaq Barrett. I mean, you can't really expect
yeah,
that of your backup tackles. The game plan didn't seem, it didn't make sense to me really. You're setting your team up for failure if that's what you're going to do. It's just as simple as that. I mean, if this is Brady's offense, or if this is the Patriots back in the day, or really any of these all-time offensive teams, like if they're in a situation like this, 2015 with Von Miller was definitely a year like that. Like the offensive line for the Pats in 2015 was horrible. That was the year where Von Miller was just tearing through the playoffs. You have Gronk, you have people chipping him at the line. You've got running backs, also blocking as well and pass protection. And the Chiefs really didn't do any of that, which to me was I questioned. I mean, we saw like the 500-yard stat. I mean, Mahomes was running for his life the whole game. He just had to try to be Superman and try to make plays when there wasn't anything to be made. And I mean, leaving your offensive line out there to dry was not ideal at all. So yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, with looking at the Chiefs' offense, I mean, they actually kind of ran the ball pretty well. They had 17 rushing attempts for 107 yards. I mean, obviously they abandoned it probably midway through the third quarter or whatever it was, but that was, I mean, the Bucks are the number one rush defense in the league. I said this going in. I was like, I don't know if they're going to be able to run the ball at all, which means they're probably going to be passing the entire game, even if it's a close game or even if they're winning. They're probably still going to be passing just because you can't really run on the Bucks defense. But Edwards-Helaire had 9 carries for 64 yards. Mahomes was pretty effective when he was scrambling out of the pocket. When he was actually able to get out of the pocket and then run. So I thought that was actually, if you look at the end of the stats, you're like, all right, if Kansas City's going to run for more than 100 yards on offense, you're probably thinking they have a good shot at winning the game because, again, it's the number one rush defense they're going against, and they're not that great of a rushing team to begin with. And then you have Kelsey and Hill on the outside. And, Kelsey had a really good game, 10 catches, 133 yards, but he wasn't doing – I know he had a 33-yard catch, but I think that was in the fourth quarter. The game was over at that point. They just didn't – Tyreek didn't have a big play. His longest catch was 23 yards. He didn't have like a 40-yard, 50-yard, 60-yard touchdown like, he usually does. He did have that one play early in the first quarter where it was a tough catch, but, you probably have to catch that. It hit him right in the hands. And that was a great play by Mahomes too. But, maybe that changed the game because that was first quarter. They already I think they may have gotten that field goal by then, maybe not, but it's a touchdown early in the first quarter. They just had a lot of key mistakes. They had a lot of drop balls, which we haven't really seen. I remember Kelsey having one down the sideline. I think it was on third down. Like I said, Hill had that one. They had Mahomes missed. I think it was Robinson in the end zone. It was a high pass. I mean, he maybe could have caught it, but he definitely missed him. But that was a chance for another touchdown. So they definitely had their missed opportunities, which obviously hurt them. If they have all those opportunities and they cash in on them, are they still going to win this game? Probably not. I think the Bucks played probably the best game they've played this entire season, I'd say. And yeah, I think it just shows that when it comes down in the Super Bowl to like the best offense versus the better defense, it usually seems the better defense wins. I mean, you said the Broncos 2015 against the Panthers. The Panthers were the best offense that season. The Broncos were one of the best defenses, but in the playoffs they were clearly the best defense, and they shut them down.
Even in 2013, it was the Manning offense, best offense in the league, best defense in the league, best defense mopped the floor with them, and it was more than just that, but still, the team with the better defense a lot of the times does win those Super Bowl matchups, for sure. I guess we can get into, first actually on your running comment, I will say a lot of those running yards came in the second half, like Edwards-Helaire right off the bat in the second half had the 26-yard run. They ended up having a couple more rushing attempts in that drive, which was surprising to me as I thought they should have ran, and I think I said this in the podcast episode before this, but I thought the Chiefs would at least try to run in the first half. They didn't really. Like, a lot of the rushing yards came from Mahomes scrambling in the first half. I don't know how many rushing yards Edwards-Helaire had in the first half, but it couldn't have been more than 30. So they didn't really try to run in the first half, and by the time you got down 21-6 in the second half, it's tough to run the ball, especially, it's just tough when you're down by that much. But I guess we'll get into the Andy Reid timeout calls. This is what if there's anything else you want to talk about, just bring it up. But there were 2 timeout calls by Andy Reid late in the second quarter going into halftime. It was like 2nd and 9 or something and 3rd and 2. He called timeouts on both of those. Had he not called those timeouts, it probably would have just gone to halftime. The Bucks had 1 timeout and I want to say like 40 seconds to work with.
Yeah, 55 seconds.
55 seconds. Had Andy Reid decided to not call any of those timeouts, it would have just gone to halftime and you would have been down 14-6 with the opportunity to get the ball coming out of the second half and tie the game right off the bat. I would have loved that. I think if you're the Chiefs and, you clearly just were the inferior team in the first half, being down only by 8, getting the ball in the second half to start the second half, like that's not a bad position to be in at all. It gives you the chance to just tie the game right away. If you can script up a nice, 10-play drive for Mahomes during halftime with like the 30-minute halftime that you have. Anyways, Andy Reid called those 2 timeouts. The worst out of the 2 was the 3rd and 2 timeout for sure.
Yeah,
it was 3rd and 2. Again, it would have just gone to halftime probably. Chiefs decided to call a timeout to try to get the ball with, it would be 30 seconds and 2 timeouts or whatever, 1 timeout. What happens is Brady throws an out route to Gronk, I want to say. They get up and they end up driving down. They get a PI call and they score a touchdown on that drive, and that makes the halftime score 21-6, I believe.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, the announcers had talked about it. The Bucks were able to capitalize on late first half drives the whole playoffs. Uh, Giving Brady this opportunity to me didn't make sense. Again, like I've said, I would so much rather be going into halftime down only by 8 with the chance to tie it up. I mean, what did you think of those timeout calls?
Yeah, the first one you have to do because it was 2nd and 10, so and with still 50 seconds left. You have all your timeouts. They have one. So depending on what the third down play is, I would say the only way you call that second timeout is if it's 3rd and 5 or more. 3rd and 2, I mean, the only way you're calling that timeout is if it's a guarantee that you're getting the stop on 3rd down so you can get the ball back. 3rd and 2 is not even close to being a guarantee, no matter how good your defense is. I mean, there's so many different plays you could run. You're right. They did I think it was like an out route to Gronk for 5 yards. It was. I didn't understand that timeout because, like I said, it's 3rd and 2. That's more in the offense's favor than the defense's favor. And then the next play after that 5-yard route was the pass interference on Mike Evans, which it was pass interference. People saying it wasn't, it was. And then, yeah, they had a 15-yard pass to Fournette, and then Tampa started calling their timeouts, and then they scored the touchdown to Antonio Brown after another pass interference. But that was the change in the game. That's where the game flipped. Even though it was probably still in the Bucks' favor, it was 14-6. But let's say they don't score, the Chiefs come out of halftime, they get a field goal. So let's say it would have been 14-9. It's a completely different game. It's 14-9. Now
it gives you the opportunity to at least feel like you can run the ball much more than you did, because I mean, really the only thing working was the running game. When you give the ability, again, with your backup tackles, if you allow Barrett and JPP to just pin their ears back and just rush the passer the rest of the game, like, what do you expect? That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense, and I think it's just, it's what Andy Reid has done a lot of the times, and it's what Bill Belichick is. He's almost a lot of these offensive geniuses. You just dare them to have the patience to run the ball and be patient with their offensive attack, and a lot of them, they don't have the patience. They want to throw the ball downfield. They want to use Mahomes, Kelsey, and Hill, and they want to use all their offense weapons. They don't want to run the ball on 1st and 2nd down, and maybe even 3rd if they have to. They want to be able to throw the ball, and for some reason, I guess, especially in the first half again, Reid just didn't really want to run the ball. I don't know if they just didn't. Maybe they just assumed they wouldn't be able to because the Tampa defense was the number 1 rushing team in the league defensively. But I don't know. I definitely would have ran the ball more. But
yeah, and I mean, running the ball. I mean, I said this going into the game. I said if the Bucks, the way I see the Bucks being able to win this game was if they were able to get at least 120 yards on the ground. And they were able to get multiple turnovers. I mean, that's exactly what happened. They got 2 turnovers from Mahomes, and then they got 145 rushing yards on the ground. Fournette played a really great game. He was 16 carries, 89 yards. He had the 27-yard touchdown. So, I mean, coming out of half, the Chiefs got that field goal. So it's still 21-9. It's still, if you get a stop, you have a chance to cut it down to 1-possession game. Then the Bucks get the ball back. He hits the 27-yard touchdown. At that point, I think we kind of knew the game was over once it was 28-9. It just didn't seem like the Chiefs they didn't have any momentum going into that. And then that touchdown right there, you needed a stop right there. And then the interception was after that. But, yeah, I said if they can do those 2 things, they have a real shot at winning this game. I guess I just didn't put in too much into the offensive line, defensive line as I should have. I just thought that the Chiefs would be able to figure out that he's not going to have that much time in the pocket, so we can't really go deep as much as we want to. So I guess I don't know if that's on their fault or the Bucks. They just didn't know what was coming. I don't know how that would be. It's only 4-man rushes, or your offensive line. They really just weren't ready. I know Mike Remmers was their left tackle. He used to be, I think, right tackle for the Vikings when they made it to the NFC Championship game a couple years ago. I guess he's just not as good as he was back then. But yeah, I think the offensive line was just a huge problem for the Chiefs, and that really just threw their whole game plan off.
You would have assumed that they'd been able to at least try to scheme it again.
Yeah, I mean they had 2 weeks to do it, knowing that was going to be their offensive line.
Yeah.
So
just an oversight by Reid and the Chiefs, at least in my mind. What did you think of I'm assuming you saw the Matthew and the Brady trash talk. I mean,
yeah, I mean, I don't buy that he said anything to him. That he said anything to
other
him.
than anything crossing the line. I don't think so.
Yeah, no, like what Matthew said after the game. Like I don't think that happened at all. I think he just kind of made that up. Like when Myles Garrett said the thing about Mason Rudolph, I don't think he said that, but.
Well, I don't think Matthew was necessarily talking about like anything
That
bad, but like
that's the way he implied
even if it was
it,
like a little bit, but even if it was like I don't know, like any swear word, Matthew wouldn't be able to like say that. I don't think so.
Well, I mean, looking at the thing, I mean, Brady did. It was after the touchdown to AB. Brady went up to him, but he didn't like. It's not like he got in his face. He kind of just went up to AB, and Matthew was right there because he was covering him or whatever. And then Matthew went after him, and then Brady went back after him. So, I mean, technically Brady started it, but he didn't really get in his face. Matthew's the first one to get in his face. So, I mean, I'm not really sure.
Yeah, it's a lot of the times in these types of games, players like a Tyrann Mathieu, if the game's going extremely well, you know, he's a leader. Like Matthew's definitely a leader on the Chiefs, but it wasn't a good look when the Chiefs are down and Matthew's throwing temper tantrums, and you know, even like Nance and Romo are getting word of like, you know, Matthew having to be calmed down in the locker room. Like to me, you know, I wouldn't want my leader throwing temper tantrums and, you know, having to be calmed down at halftime. But I mean, not that necessarily is the worst thing ever, but it just, I don't know. But I thought it was pretty interesting. I mean, it was definitely entertaining. It was one of the more entertaining parts of the game because, I mean, just from a NFL fan perspective, it definitely wasn't a very close game. I mean, the first, you know, probably up until halftime, it was actually a pretty entertaining game, at least as somebody who had a team to root for. I mean, I was nervous for, you know, definitely the first half. I was pretty nervous, even coming out of the first half, going into the second half. I was still, you know, it was still definitely a game. I was probably more nervous than I should have been because even when it was like 28-9, I was still like, well, it's not technically over yet. Like they do have Mahomes, and we've seen bigger comebacks in the Super Bowl before. Well, a bigger comeback in the Super Bowl before, but yeah, I mean.
Yeah, I mean the one thing that really killed the Chiefs, like besides the offensive line and everything like that, was the penalties. They had 11 penalties for 120 yards, and not even just the amount of penalties and the yardage that was with it, but the timing of those penalties. They had a pick on Brady that got called back because of a penalty. They had those 2 PIs at the end of the half that, I mean, you could say about the timeout, but if they don't get that PI, then that was like a 35-yard penalty or something like that. I think they had another one that cost them something. I can't remember, but they had really costly penalties. They had the field goal when it was the Bucks.
It was 4th and 5. They were going to kick like a.
And they were offsides for like a 40-yard field goal that then turned into a touchdown. Or that turned into the goal line stop at the 1. I'm pretty sure, but even still, they. Yeah, that turned into a touchdown.
That was the touchdown to Gronk, right?
Yeah, that turned into a touchdown to Gronk. Yeah, the next one was the goal line stop. But so that was that would have been 3 points. Then it was 7 points. So they really had costly penalties that cost them points. Even change of possession with the Tyrann Mathieu intercepted Brady. So yeah, it was the Chiefs played their worst game over probably the last like 2 years. I think they'd only lost one game out of their last like 29. I want to say it was, or at least Mahomes. Not
this
really
is the
counting.
worst I've seen the Chiefs play maybe
yeah,
ever.
With Mahomes at quarterback, this is the worst they've ever played because even their one loss this season, I mean, it was like 40-34 or whatever it was against the Raiders, and then ever since last year when they went on their winning streak, that was their only loss they've had. So, yeah, this was definitely the worst they played. Even in the games that they've won, they've looked bad, but not this bad, clearly. So, yeah, this was definitely their worst game.
Yeah. Gronk. I mean, Gronk looked like he looked pretty good.
Yeah, no, he did. Something with the postseason.
I mean, I was surprised to see Gronk look as good as he did. I don't think he was anything close to, like, vintage Gronk or anything. He wasn't, like, a dominant force, but... I mean, if he played like in the regular season, like he played in the Super Bowl, he'd at least be a top 3 tight end, at least in my mind, maybe top 4.
Well, he just can't do that in the regular season.
No, I know, yeah. I mean, it happened in 2018 too against in the Super Bowl against the Rams. I mean, he had looked like a washed-up version of himself, and to an extent, he definitely was a washed-up version of himself. But in that Super Bowl, he made arguably the biggest play, which he beat the double coverage, and he made that catch that brought them to like the 5-yard line or whatever it was, and that's when Michelle scored the only touchdown of that game. But yeah, Gronk had for him an insane game. I mean, it was more than you could have hoped for coming out of a washed up Gronk. But And I mean, post game, they asked Gronk if he was paying attention to, if he was paying attention to, the other tight end being Kelsey, and if he wanted to like win that battle. And I mean, Gronk played like the better tight end, at least in my mind, in that game. Not that Kelsey had a bad game, but I want to say Kelsey had 2 drops. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if they're going to be officially counted as a drop or whatever by whoever's statistics, but he had a couple plays there that he definitely could have made that he didn't. I remember the one on that they were like the Chiefs were backed up and Kelsey had that big drop. There was another one too, but yeah, I mean, anyways, Gronk looked great. Gronk looked pretty good.
Yeah, and I mean, if you were to tell me Mike Evans would have 1 catch for 30 yards and Chris Godwin have 2 catches for 9 yards, I mean, you'd probably say that they lost. Mm-hmm. At least they weren't scoring points, you know, not 31 points. So for them to still put up 31 points with Gronk and Fournette being your leading receivers, that it shows that, they were just clicking throughout the entire game.
I think, Evans only having 1 catch for 30 and Godwin 2 for 9. It goes to Brady, and I think that's a credit to Brady because there's not many quarterbacks that you can justify giving your top 2 targets 39 combined receiving yards, and they're not mad. And not that Godwin's a diva or whatever, but we've seen with basically all the top receivers in the league, when they don't get their targets and they don't get the ball as much as they'd like, they throw temper tantrums. And with Brady, it didn't happen, and I attribute it to Brady because I know for sure Mike Evans would be the type to complain about not getting the targets. So the fact that he didn't, I think that's a statement on changing the culture with Brady. If it's a different quarterback, like not necessarily a Winston, but really any other quarterback in the league probably, and they're only getting 1 target for 30 yards or 1 reception for 30 yards, they're probably going to throw a fit, especially if there's somebody like Mike Evans. But looking at this like Tampa receiving core, I mean you're gonna get Howard back too on top of all this. It'll be interesting to see. I'm pretty sure AB's a free agent. Fournette's obviously he's a free agent as well. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and I mean
so is Godwin.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say they said that them and Godwin, if they don't get to a long-term agreement, they're just gonna franchise him. But I think they said they will get to a long-term agreement with him. So
hopefully, I know they were. I heard people talking about. Would you rather have? If you could only choose one between Barrett and Godwin, which one would you rather have back for next year?
I mean, I'd rather have Barrett. I'd rather have the more valuable position is the defensive end. So
I think I don't know. I think they're equally as valuable. But given that the Buccaneers are just loaded with receiving talent right now, depth wise, I mean, you have Scotty Miller who's pretty good. I mean, Scotty Miller has played well when he's gotten snaps, especially early on in the year. He was like their best receiver. Tyler Johnson was a rookie. He's looked pretty solid. He did have that. I don't know what happened on that slant play or drag play or whatever that was. But Tyler Johnson made a bunch of good catches this regular season. If they lost Godwin, it would be a blow. But I would probably rather have Barrett as well.
I probably see them signing Barrett long term and then franchising Godwin. That just makes the most sense.
I don't think they'll lose either.
I don't think they'll lose either. But they're not going to franchise Barrett because they just did it last year. I just would be surprised if they did that again. So they're probably going to sign Barrett long term and then franchise Godwin.
It'll be interesting to see like if AB comes back. I mean, I'm not sure. I don't feel like he's really built up any stock in terms of like teams on the open market.
Yeah, he would only get like a 1-year deal.
He'd get like a.
But I don't even think he'd want to go anywhere else. So
I don't think so.
Brady
I mean, I think the best ideal situation for Brown would honestly be for Godwin to leave because AB could basically do. He wouldn't be necessarily the same type of receiver as Godwin, but he could fill Godwin's role pretty well, and he'd be a budget version of Godwin. So I don't know. I think you definitely could afford to lose Godwin, but you definitely. I mean, you wouldn't want to. Obviously, like it's so helpful being able to have 5 really awesome receivers who have no ego because of Brady, and not all 5 receivers are going to get all the yards they'd like every week, but with somebody like Brady, it just you always know that it's for the best of the team or whatever. So if it works, it works. I ideally like to bring them all back, but I mean I'm not exactly sure what will happen there, but yeah.
Yeah. And then I guess we haven't talked about Brady at least during the game yet. So he was 21 of 29, 201 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, only sacked once. Really, he did everything in the first half. I'm pretty sure he was 16 of 20 in the first half, and he was probably around like 170, 160. He really didn't throw the ball in the second half that much. He didn't need to. But yeah, I mean, he played a phenomenal game. I mean, I think they said 16 to 20 was like the highest completion percentage at halftime in Super Bowl history. Also, the first quarter, they showed the stat when they were playing, like in Brady's Super Bowls in the first quarter, he's never scored a touchdown. They scored 2 touchdowns in the first quarter.
No, they only had one. They only had one, right?
No, I think it wasn't the 2 Gronk ones in the first quarter, or maybe not.
No, I thought the first Gronk one was late in the first quarter, because I remember hoping they'd score a touchdown in the first quarter just so that stat would go away, because every single year
it was they only scored one. Yeah.
Every single year, by the way, in the Super Bowl, every single year. I mean, they always talk about it. It's so annoying, but
yeah, I mean, he played. It was almost kind of like Green Bay. Like the first half, he was really good in both games, and then the second half, the Green Bay one, he threw the 3 picks and he wasn't as good. I think this one they had so much of a lead and their defense was playing so well, he just didn't have to do anything. So
part of me was, even after the game, was wishing, like, I kind of wish that Mahomes was able to bring this Chiefs team, keep them in the game, so then Brady could have just kept slinging the ball everywhere, because Brady had a phenomenal game. I mean, he looked. I mean, I'm not going to say he necessarily looked like prime vintage Brady, but I mean, he did everything he had to in that game. And if this game did turn into like a 40-35 type of game, I think the Bucs probably could have or would have won that game. I mean, Brady was playing insane. Didn't really miss any passes. The only mess up that he kind of had was that check down to Fournette that got tipped at the line, and then Fournette for some reason decided to tip that and even higher in the air for Matthew to pick off. But yeah, Brady played awesome. He played absolutely great.
Yeah, and he was Super Bowl MVP. But I think you're the one who said this. It could have been Devin White. I mean, it wasn't going to be once you realized how the game, like once you saw what happened and stuff like that. But if Brady had a bad game, it easily would have been Devin White then. If they were still to win.
I think, I mean, it's tough because, if you could have given the MVP award to, the whole defense, the whole defense deserved it over the whole offense. But when, there wasn't like a Malcolm Smith player in this game. There was nobody with like a pick six and made a bunch of plays. And so, it just got defaulted to Brady. I mean, the game wasn't really ever close, so it's tough to have an MVP there. But.
And Brady was like for the first half, he was the reason why they jumped out to the lead, and then the reason that they held the lead was the second half and because of the defense. So, it would have went to Brady. I mean, he would have had to have like a bad game in order for him not to get it. But, I mean, what is that? So he's won 7 Super Bowls and he's what 5 MVPs? Yeah. So.
Yeah. I mean, people were talking about, before the game, if Mahomes were to win this, he'd be able to contend for the GOAT. And I definitely like the GOAT or whatever. But I think that probably is true. He could have. But losing this game, now 100%, Mahomes will never be the undisputed GOAT. I still think Mahomes can come back, and he can make an argument for sure. If, he is able to pull off, he'll probably have to get to like 5 Super Bowls to be, even close to the conversation. But if he's able to get to 5, 6, maybe 7 Super Bowls or something like that, if he's able to come back next year and beat Brady, that makes it a lot more interesting. But now that Brady has beaten Mahomes in a Super Bowl and an AFC Championship game, we'll never get to the point where it is like a vast majority of people agreeing that Mahomes is the GOAT. It's just because no matter what, if you're a Brady homer, you can just say Super Bowl 55.
Yeah. The only way would be if, I agree, like I think Romo said it, if Mahomes were to win yesterday, it would have been 6-2, but now it's 7-1. I mean, you're going to have to win at least 5. But also, I mean, the only way he could do it, I would say, is if he wins like the next 3. Because then he'd be at 4. He'd still be 28 or 29 years old. Maybe go a couple years without winning one. Like, he'd have a chance, but like to win 3 in a row, I mean, that's really hard, obviously. So, and that means they would have been to 5 in a row as a team. And obviously their team is going to get worse because Mahomes' contract is going to kick in. Chris Jones' contract is going to kick in. Kelsey, Hill, all these other guys. So they're definitely going to get worse. It won't be like they're 500. They'll still be like a 10-win team most likely. But, but but they probably only have like 2-3 years of being like this elite team right now, and then they'll probably have a 10-win season, a couple 10-win seasons. The division's gonna get better. People in the AFC are gonna get better. So you think the window's pretty big because of the quarterback you have and the team you have, and then once you lose, you realize it's maybe only a couple years.
I still think that Mahomes is going to go down, though, as a top 5 quarterback of all time. I think he'll be in that same – I think he'll be at least in the conversation of, like, them. I think he'll be better than Rodgers all time because I think Mahomes will get – I think Rodgers will probably only get 1 Super Bowl. Breeze 1 Super Bowl. Manning got 2. I think Mahomes will get at least 2 Super Bowls, so he'll get at least 1 more. That'll probably put him in, like, the Manning type of conversation, like with the Elways. Stuff
I
like
think.
that.
Well,
So
I would say
that's top 5. So
yeah, I mean, I would say he's more Elway than Manning because I mean Manning, like the regular season, he's 500 in the regular season, and he was never like the best quarterback in the league. Obviously, Mahomes is.
You talking about Manning? No, I'm talking about Peyton.
Oh, Peyton. I thought you were talking about Eli.
No.
Peyton. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Peyton. Like Peyton was probably like the greatest regular season quarterback of all time. If you just look at the stats and everything like that. Not really when it came to the postseason, but yeah,
I'm just saying that.
Yeah. No, I know what you're saying, but. I would say Mahomes, yeah, he probably at least gets 2. I'd say probably 3 or 4.
But
Depends on how long he plays,
but
too.
Even when Manning didn't have stacked rosters, and it was kind of the same with Brady, too. I mean, even when he didn't have stacked rosters, although he did have Belichick his whole career, until now. But even when Manning didn't have a star-studded roster, he was still able to get the bye for the most part, still able to win 11, 12 games every year. I think the Chiefs will always be that for the next 10 years. They're gonna be winning 11 and 12 games even with a not good roster. That's just how good Mahomes is now. They're going to have to win at least 1 or 2 of those Super Bowls when they don't have the roster. It's something Brady kind of never really did, to be honest. It's
kind of 2018. They weren't like the best team in the league.
No, but it was more of a defensive team. But no, what I'm saying is like, I guess, from the years 2005 to 2013, a lot of those years, those were like the years where Brady was like, you could argue those are the years where Brady was at his best offensively. They didn't have the defense nearly that they had from 2001 to 2004 and 2014 to like 2018. But it was weird because those years Brady's offense was much better and the defense was horrible, and Brady was never able to completely carry a team to a Super Bowl, at least in my mind. It'll be interesting to see if Mahomes can win a Super Bowl with nothing around him, because if he could do that, that would make the conversation he has to do that to even make it a debate at this point, because there's no way he's going to get to 7 Super Bowls. Sorry, there's no way he's going to win 7. It's just not going to happen. Brady might even get to 8, because if they can come back next year with this same roster, they're going to have this same roster. They're going to have the offseason now, so it's not even like, there's going to be a bit of a Super Bowl hangover type of thing, but this is going to be the first time they have an offseason. They still have stuff to prove. Arians is now going to be 69 next year. I mean, he still has a bunch to prove. I mean, he doesn't have many more years as a coach, and he definitely wants to win more than 1. Even in the press conference, he was saying he's coming back. He wants to win another. He has his mind on 2. Brady's coming back as well. Obviously, Gronk's coming back. I don't think that this Bucs team is content with only winning 1. I definitely think there's a legitimate chance this Bucs team can go back to back. Honestly.
Yeah, and they have an easy path in the sense that the NFC is not as strong as the AFC, and it's not. If you just look at the NFC by itself, I mean, the Bucs are probably the best team. I know I was saying like the Packers like before, but with the Rodgers stuff, it's a little dicey. I'm not saying he's going to leave or anything like that, but it's just a weird situation. So the Bucs probably are the best team. I don't think the Rams are. I think like maybe on.
I think it'll be competitive, but
I just don't see like if you were to put Matt Stafford versus Brady in the NFC Championship game, I don't know. It'd be hard to pick not Brady, you know what I mean? So I think they're probably the best team.
This defense is only getting better. Now, JPP and
the secondary is going to get older, which is going to be better too.
Exactly, yeah. I mean,
and
your young defensive pieces.
And Patrick Peterson, he's going to get released, possibly a 1-year contract or something like that. It's not the worst thing,
Yeah, I mean,
he's not Pat Pete from like 6 years ago, but he's still a pretty good cornerback, and he's been in the league for like 10 years, something like that. So, I think that'd be a great pickup, but I mean, I don't know what the market looks like.
I'm not sure if he's one of those corners that would go to safety down the road, but
no, he'd still play corner.
Yeah, but this Bucs team could definitely use like a veteran piece in the secondary, because they kind of don't have it. I mean, their 2 starting corners are both 24, I want to say. Winfield is a rookie, and Whitehead is also young. He might even be 25 or something like that, but I guess speaking of Winfield, you see the piece. I mean, obviously you saw the piece.
Yeah.
That was I loved that. That was that probably was my favorite moment from the Super Bowl. I'm not a fan of the Chiefs I mean, I just don't like the Chiefs because I've had to root against them for at least a couple of years now, and they've at least beaten the Patriots before. So it was so nice to see Tyreek Hill get some of his own medicine there because I hate when he does the peace thing going into the end zone and the backflip against the Chiefs or against the Bucks was, that was that. But yeah, I loved that. I loved Winfield there, and it's crazy. Winfield's a rookie, so it's a rookie doing that against a veteran top 5 receiver in the league that's pretty ballsy for a rookie safety to do. But I loved it. So
yeah.
But I mean. Trying to think of.
I mean, we could talk about the Gatorade color.
I was gonna say the Gatorade was blue. If you
Yeah.
go back into the podcast last episode or whatever, I said to go with blue, and if anybody listened to me, I'm sure nobody did, but if anybody did,
You're right.
they would have made some money.
Yeah.
So, just looking at my tweets, I know quickly. I mean, people are now comparing Brady to athletes across other sports, and the one to comparison I just don't even feel like hearing at all because it's very uneducated in my opinion is Bill Russell to Tom Brady. I understand Bill Russell has 11 rings right now, but guess how many teams there were in the and I don't know if it was called the NBA or not, but I'll just say the NBA. Guess how many teams were in the league when Russell entered?
It was 14
8.
or something like that. Yeah.
8 teams. When he retired, there was 14.
Yeah.
So I think they went from 8 to 10 to 12 to 14, I want to say, throughout his career. But, yeah, he played 13 seasons. He won 11 rings. Obviously, that's insane, right? Even if there are only 8 or 12 or 10 teams in the league throughout his career. But bottom line is the NBA competition back then was nothing compared to what it is today, not even close. It was him and Wilt, basically, and that was it. A bunch of, 6'2",
Well,
I mean, the competition wasn't there.
Well, also, I mean, those Celtics teams had 6 to 7 Hall of Famers on all those teams too.
I mean,
Their whole starting 5 was Hall
they
of
had,
Famers.
other than Wilt Chamberlain, they had the rest of the league on the Celtics.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. So it was definitely different, and
to
also,
me, it's just not the same. But
and I don't know what you think about this, but I don't think that a football player can be if we're looking at all sports, I don't think a football player can be the greatest athlete of all time because you don't play both sides of the ball. I know it's definitely the hardest sport to play. Quarterback's the hardest position in sports by far. But if you don't play both sides of the ball, I don't think you can be the greatest athlete of all time, of all the sports. I think for me, that's Jordan. I mean, I never saw him play, but he played both sides of the court at elite levels, and he won 6 championships, 6-0. He has all the records, possible, basically. I just don't, and I was talking to someone about this last night. I just don't think that Tom Brady can be the greatest athlete of all time in every sport. You know what I mean? I don't know if you agree with it, but
it's tough to compare cross sport. The ones that the comparisons I don't really care for, not that they're invalid or whatever, but comparing Brady to Phelps and Serena Williams and I don't know, all the individual sport, I don't care. It just doesn't. You can't compare it. It's a team sport versus just an individual. There's no comparison there to be made. I mean. To me, I mean, I prefer football over those, but even if I didn't, I mean, it's just you can't really compare those. But yeah, I mean, Brady to Jordan, I don't know, to me, Brady impacts both sides of the field, on and off the field, even if he's not playing on it. I mean, Tom Brady is the only player in any team sport that I've seen, maybe other than LeBron, that just has such an impact on the culture that he can go to the least winningest team in all of major sports currently. I think their win percentage is .396, so a 39.6% chance of winning a game. The Bucks, out of all the 4 major sports, is the worst team. And he goes there, and not that they're a bad roster, they're a great roster, but he goes there and he completely changes the culture. Without Brady, I don't think there's any other quarterback in the league other than maybe maybe a Mahomes. But if Mahomes is going to play like that in the Super Bowl, then no. But he might be the only quarterback that could have gone there and turned a 7-9 team to a Super Bowl winning team. Rodgers definitely doesn't do that. I mean,
no.
Rodgers Rodgers is definitely, he might be the most talented quarterback of all time, arm talent wise. As far as arm talent's concerned, if you want to say he's more talented than Brady, I'm not going to deny that at all. He makes throws that Brady definitely, wishes he could make. But again, from a culture standpoint, from a leadership perspective, Rodgers doesn't compare to Brady. He doesn't even compare to maybe even a Manning. But yeah, I don't know. To me, I would probably have. I don't know. It's tough for me to pick, but I think I'd go Brady. I mean, Brady's got 7 Super Bowls, and the NFL is the hardest sport to win a ring in for sure. I mean, in basketball, if you're just if you're just a dominant player, and you have Pippen next to you, I mean, you're gonna win. Same with LeBron. If you have AD next to you, I mean, it's tough. There's not too much adversity you have to overcome. Not that it's again, I mean, it's
I mean,
it's tough to it's cross sport. I'm not saying that it's easy to go win a ring in the NBA, but comparing the NFL to the NBA, it's much harder to win in the NFL. The league is made for diversity, and it's meant for all the changing and what teams are great and stuff like that. And the NBA, it's if you have a top 5 player in the league on your team, you're going to be competing for a championship, basically. I mean, it's as simple as that. If you have KD on your team, if you have LeBron on your team, you're going to be competing. I mean, it's really as simple as that. I don't know. To me, I think I would take Brady, but there's really no right or wrong answer. The only wrong answer I will say, I think Bill Russell is an objectively wrong answer if anybody even tries to say that about whatever. I mean, I don't even think Bill Russell is the best Celtic of all time. I never watched Bill Russell. Nobody has really watched Bill Russell, but I wouldn't have Bill Russell as the greatest Celtic of all time, so I wouldn't even compare him to Brady in that sense. But I think I would take Brady. I think the 7 rings is just too much at this point. If he had only had 4 or 5, it definitely wouldn't. I don't think it would be Brady. It'd probably be Jordan, maybe LeBron. I know there are people that think LeBron's better than Jordan. The problem is I never watched Jordan, so.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I'll say to that is that I watch LeBron, and he's not the greatest of all time, because I think if you were watching the greatest of all time, I think you'd know it.
I mean, I don't know, but.
Well, that's what I think, but I mean, I
LeBron's
agree.
by far the best player I've ever seen. I mean, I don't want to get.
Well,
into
yeah,
it,
that I've ever seen. Yeah, but all right. I agree that football is easily the hardest sport to win championships in, because it's one person doesn't make enough of a difference in a game that he can just lead into a victory. Like in basketball, you can just go for 50 points and you'll most likely win the game. I mean, again, assuming that
Bradley Beal would definitely not agree with that.
Assuming that you're on a team that's at least confident, then I would say you probably win the game. But in football, Brady's probably the only person, again, maybe Mahomes, but that's just strictly based on talent, not the intangible stuff that Brady brings. That he's probably the only person who can go to a certain team who is 500, or at least has the capability of being better, and then lead him to the playoffs, and then maybe a Super Bowl win.
Is there even any athlete in any team sport history that has the same intangible culture, locker room impact that Brady has? And it's definitely more important in football than it is basketball or basketball. But to me, I don't know. I don't even think Brady has to play both sides of the field, and he can still be the greatest athlete and whatever of all time, if you want to say that. One of my roommates, he says that Jim Brown's the greatest athlete of all time. I thought that was pretty laughable. I hope he listens to this. But
we never saw him play.
Exactly. He's like the Bill Russell of he's
football.
like the Wilt Chamberlain of the NFL. I was like, all right, well, I mean, he's a Browns fan, so that's why he said Jim Brown. I was like, whatever. He said,
maybe.
I was like, I mean.
You can say, he's probably the greatest running back of all time, but, I mean, again,
even
never
then,
saw him
I
play.
don't know. Is Wilt Chamberlain the greatest? I don't know. But if you never watch somebody play, that's why I've just, tried to stay away from Jordan and people like that. Is, if I've never seen them, play, not necessarily live, but basically the most I've seen of Jordan is, highlights, stuff like that, maybe most of a game, in the finals and stuff like that. But, I'm not watching, their regular season games against whatever teams were even there back then. I'm not watching Bulls versus Celtics, opening night or Christmas night or anything like that. I don't know. It's tough for me to speak on it, really, but, yeah. And Brady's had longer longevity than Jordan, for sure.
Well, yeah, I think it's also this may sound weird, but it's probably easier in football being a quarterback with the rules where they are now. I mean, if this was 20 years ago and Brady was trying to play into his 40s 20 years ago, there would probably be no way. But now, you can't touch the quarterback, so he definitely And he also
Yeah.
releases the ball in 2 seconds almost every single time, so it definitely
Yeah.
helps.
Brady does a great job of protecting himself. Clearly, I don't know. I mean, LeBron. It'll be interesting because
LeBron's gonna fall in the next 2 years. He's gonna fall off.
LeBron's.
I mean,
But
he can't be 38 and playing
LeBron's
like that.
proving Jordan. I mean, LeBron's proving the longevity thing at least somewhat wrong. I mean, LeBron is what 34, 35 right now.
He's 35, I want to say. He was 18 in 2003, so 18 years later, yeah,
I mean,
he's
yeah,
36.
he's getting up there, is what I'm saying. He's 36 right now.
Yeah, he's
Okay, so he
36,
just
yeah.
turned 36.
But also, the one thing is that between him and Jordan, I mean, like, LeBron spends $1 million on his body every single year. I mean, Jordan wasn't doing that.
No, and I'm not saying that Jordan could have done that necessarily, but I don't know. I mean,
He also played college, which, LeBron
Yeah.
had 3 more years on him, too.
I still put that longevity thing into and I count that. I mean, if we look at Jordan's career, yes, he had the 2 3-peats, but I mean, other than that, he didn't. How many years did Jordan play in the league? He definitely didn't.
Came in
get
in
close to what
84.
LeBron is going
He
to
came
get.
in 84, retired in 90 at the end of 93, then came back in 90, technically 95, but let's say 96, and then played till 98, and then played for those like 1 year, 2 years with the Wizards.
So 13 seasons.
Yeah.
He had 13. 13 with Chicago, 2 with Washington. So
Yeah.
it's not like he didn't have a long career, but I mean, if he had not retired, if he had not gone to play baseball, he would have 19 seasons under his belt. I think at that point, and like obviously, if he didn't go to baseball and he was able to win, what I mean, that would be correct me if I'm wrong, but that would be 7 finals in a row, right?
Well, 94, it would have been 94 and 95. I mean, he technically came back in 95 and they lost to the Magic that year. So, I mean, if he never retired, I mean, like, he obviously would have been more like,
yeah, you're right. Okay.
more into shape. He wasn't in basketball shape, but I don't even know if they would have won those 2 finals, honestly. Maybe they would have reached them, but I don't think they would have won them. I mean, those Rocket teams were really good, and even the Knicks teams that they would have had to play. So, I don't know. Who knows? But he definitely still would have been, probably the number 1, number 2 seed, and they probably would have reached the conference finals at least.
Also, and this is like a defense to Brady, I guess, in this debate, but the argument that, going 6 for 6 is like, quote unquote, like a good thing, like better than going 6-2 in finals, to me, I don't agree with that at all. Just because Jordan maybe lost to, let's say, early on in his career, like Bird or Magic or something, or I guess not Magic, but like Bird or the Pistons, like before the finals, that doesn't mean that it's like better than getting to the finals. I mean, it supports Brady in this argument. It supports LeBron. I mean, what's LeBron's finals record? He's like 3-6.
It's 4-6.
4-6. Sorry, obviously he's 4-6. But yeah, like to me, if LeBron it was 4-0 in finals, that would be worse than him being 4-6 to me for sure, 100%. So I don't really.
I see what you're saying.
6 for 6.
I see what you're saying. Like, getting to more finals is more impressive than losing in the conference finals. Like, I realize what you're saying, but 6 losses. I mean, I don't know. Like, to lose, maybe if it was like 3 times, or maybe it's like he was 4-4. Okay, like you're 4-4. He still won 4 times, but it'd be 4-6. I don't know. He has to win. Like, he has to win at least 1 or 2 more.
I think it's easier to be like 6 for 6 and like in a 1-sentence thing, like that sounds awesome, and it is awesome, obviously. But we'll just take 2011. Like I would rather the Heat. Actually, we won't take 2011. We'll take 2014. I would rather the Heat get to the finals and lose to the Spurs in 5 than them lose in the conference finals to whatever team they ended up playing that year.
Pacers.
The Pacers, yes. I mean, I would rather them lose to the Spurs, 100%. Oh, Siri. All right.
Siri just decided to do that.
I would. I mean, I don't know. That's just me. And if you look at Brady, I would rather him have done that too. I mean, I would rather him in, let's just say 2017. I'd rather you get to the Super Bowl and lose to the Eagles than lose to the Jaguars in the AFC Championship game.
Yeah. Well, one thing is and I know you agree on it. It's that it's way harder to get to a championship game in football than it is basketball. I mean, some of those years in LeBron, he was just sweeping the Eastern Conference. It wasn't even close. Like, I mean, in football, you could easily lose any week, no matter if you're the home team. If you're the away team. If you were 13-3, the team you're playing was 9-7. It's way different in football than basketball.
Yeah. I mean, in basketball, again, like, just to go off this, but it's like we're looking at the Heat this year and we're saying, like, wow, like, is their finals appearance a fluke? Like, it is weird to see a team only make it to a certain place once. Like, if you're getting to the finals, you're most likely getting there like 2 or 3 times. If you just look over the course of the NBA's history, like the Warriors, the Heat, the Cavs, like you're probably not getting to the finals only once. Like the Pistons, like only winning it once and really only legitimately competing, in the finals once. Like that's kind of surprising. Like
Talking about the 2000s Pistons.
yeah, what I'm saying is like, you know, if we look at the Heat, right? Like the Heat made the finals last year, and they might not even make the play. I mean, they're going to, but they might not even make the playoffs this year. It's weird to see. Whereas like the Cavs or any of these teams, like for the most part in the NBA, it's normal to like get to the finals multiple times if you're gonna make it, and it's normal to like compete for conference championships. In football, it's pretty rare that a team gets to back-to-back conference championships. It doesn't happen unless you have a generational talent, a top 3 quarterback of all time, in like a Brady or a Manning or like even like Rodgers. Like Rodgers has only ever gotten one Super Bowl.
He's gotten to one Super Bowl, yeah.
Yeah, so it just in the NBA, if you take the Rodgers equivalent of the NBA, I don't know who you would say it is, but they've definitely gotten to the finals multiple times, made the conference championship multiple times. So, yeah, I mean, I'm just agreeing with football being harder to consistently win.
Yeah. All right, I mean, unless you have anything else to say, I think that's probably it.
Yeah. I think that's everything. I'm just checking over my Twitter to see if anything. I mean, so I guess Brady beat Breeze, Rodgers, and Mahomes back to back. I mean, I guess we never said that, but it's just.
And Taylor Heineke.
That was what I was going to say, and Taylor Heineke. And if you look at it, the team that probably played the closest was probably the Washington football team.
Yeah.
Maybe the Packers. Maybe the Packers.
Yeah.
The Packers lost by 5.
Well, I would honestly say I think the Saints did, because if that fumble doesn't happen, they're up 2 possessions.
I know. I think the Saints probably did, but if you just look at the scores, I mean, like, the Washington football team played extremely close, especially obviously given the talent gap there. This is crazy to think. I mean,
yeah, no, they definitely played them the best.
And the Chiefs were the least entertaining game out of the 4 for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, not that the Washington game was very entertaining, but
at least it was back and forth.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
For as far as Reed's legacy is concerned, this is a huge loss for Reed. I mean, if he were to win this game again, like we talked about, he'd be shot up into the greatest coaches of all time, and now he's still. You can't just win one. I feel like you need to win multiple, especially as a head coach, because Reed's been coaching for many years, so Reed's gonna have to win another one, at least another one with Mahomes.
I would say if he wins next year, then he's back up to that possibility of getting into that conversation of some of the greatest coaches of all time. He'd still have to win probably 1 or 2 more after that, but if he were to come back next year and they were to win, this loss wouldn't mean as much as if they weren't to win next year.
Any coach can win one Super Bowl. Not that Reed is just any coach, but what I'm saying is, as far as his legacy is concerned, there are many coaches. Every year a coach has to win a Super Bowl. Only the greats can win multiples, and we'll see if Reed is that or not. I mean, he definitely is regular season and just, mind-wise, he's up there offensively for sure. But, I mean, we'll see. He definitely has to win another, though, for sure. Yeah. I mean, if you just look at the coaches that have won one Super Bowl, if he was in the same category as them, that'd be a disappointing coaching career for sure.
Yeah. I think that's probably it, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we could still talk about this for the rest of the off season. Just storylines and everything from this game, and then the season. They finished the season, no games got canceled or anything like that. It's going to be the craziest off season, probably at least what I could remember, with all the quarterbacks moving. We've already seen quarterbacks moving. They said that Carson Wentz is going to get traded, which kind of surprised me because
that surprises me.
We thought that Doug Peterson getting fired was okay. They're picking Wentz over him, but clearly it wasn't just Peterson. It was an organizational issue that Wentz had with them. So
wait, I have a question actually. Do you think they fired Peterson and went with the storyline that they fired Peterson choosing Wentz just to get trade stock out of him, or do you think that's how they felt until recently?
Well, they did. I remember seeing this when it happened, and then I think Schefter talked about it when the news broke about them actually going to trade him the next couple of days, that Jeffrey Lurie, their owner, said when they fired Peterson, it wasn't just because Wentz. They said it was just that wasn't the main reason. It was definitely a reason, but it wasn't the main reason. There was stuff there was stuff that came out like he didn't want to be told what to do and everything like that. So I guess that really was the issue, that it wasn't really just him or Wentz. It was kind of a actual coaching decision that they made to fire him. But yeah, I know. I thought that them bringing in Sirianni, a Colts guy, Frank Reich guy, that seemed like a Wentz hire. You know what I mean? So yeah, I guess Wentz just was done with the situation.
Yeah, it's surprising to me. I mean, but now this just again like this
Now
quarterback
this
offseason is
now,
crazy.
now I think now the Colts have to get him. If you didn't, you missed out on Stafford, which it came
How
out.
much is he going to go for? Because I was
They
thinking,
said they want a Stafford package, which I don't know if you're getting 2 first-round picks. And I mean, the news came out that the Panthers were willing to give up their pick this year, their 8th overall pick this year for Stafford, and another first-round. Their package was better than the Rams package.
No. It was the only first round they wanted to give up was the 8th. They didn't want to give up.
But they were still going to give up like a Teddy Bridgewater and like a 3rd-round pick or something like that.
So they were losing out on.
That's a better package than the Rams.
The Rams thought
because the Rams will be in the 20s. Their first round picks will be in the 20s, not the 8th overall.
The Rams took the 2 firsts, so the 1 first. I'm not saying that they're right or wrong. I'm just they thought they thought the Lions package was a better package. I don't know that I agree with that or not.
Well, I think they said Stafford wanted to go to LA and that the Lions didn't want to mess up that relationship, so they were just willing to take whatever offer from the Rams. But the Colts, I think they have to get Wentz. I mean,
it's just so tough though.
You have no
firsts. I mean,
if they can do it without 2 firsts, which
I think they probably will have to give up 1 though.
No, they'll definitely have to give up 1.
Which is even crazy to think.
Because you have to at least give up 1.
Before the Stafford trade, I mean, people were not necessarily us, but there were people saying like, is Wentz even worth like picks in general?
No. I mean, that wouldn't make any sense. But
I'm not saying they're right. There were definitely people that did not want to give up a first, and now we're at the point where like you basically that's the start. That's to start the negotiation as a first, really, probably. And at least how the cap's going to work with the Eagles, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Eagles knew the situation. They're going to have a ton of dead cap, but they obviously knew that was going to happen if they're going to trade Wentz, which, again, it was reported that they are going to in the next couple days, it seems like. So I just think the Colts, they missed out on Stafford. I think the Colts have to get him. It's the perfect fit. I don't really see another team. Like, what other team would want Wentz, or at least that would fit him like that? Like, a great offensive line, decent weapons, really good defense, coach that you were really good with in Philadelphia, a fresh start. I don't know. I think it's just a perfect fit. They have the money, too. They have the cap space, so.
Yeah, it's really the only place that makes the most sense. It might even be the only one that, like, makes sense.
It's the one because they're in a situation where they have a good team, but without a really good quarterback, they're not going to be able to do anything. So if they can get Wentz somewhat close to that 2017 level, not saying it would be MVP or even close to what he was that year, but if he can be a top 10 quarterback, then they're a real shot. I would say, with them, the Bills, the Chiefs, like it'd be, those 3 teams, honestly. Unless, the Browns were to make a really big jump or something like that.
If you have Wentz for that wild card game and he's maybe even just like 75% of himself, he probably win it against the Bills. There's a chance.
Well, yeah.
Not that Rivers had a bad game.
Yeah, Rivers, that was probably his best playoff game in a long time. But, yeah, I think if you have Wentz as your quarterback and he can be a top 10 quarterback, top 12 quarterback, then yeah, I think you have a real shot, especially in that division. I mean, that's a really easy division. The Titans, we've seen that they're clearly not that, caliber of team, and then you have the Jaguars and the Texans. So,
yeah, but anyways, I mean this NFL offseason is looking to be the most interesting one in a long time. Even more interesting than the Brady one, probably.
Yeah, because that was just one guy. Even though it was Brady, it was only one guy. That we have Wentz, Stafford, Watson, Dak, which he'll stay with the Cowboys, but Derek Carr possibly. They were saying they may trade for Watson, Derek Carr, and a first-round pick, Darren Waller, stuff like that. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff. What are the Jets going to do? Darnold, take a quarterback. The Falcons, they may take a quarterback. What happens with Matt Ryan, Teddy Bridgewater? There's a lot of quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins, possibly.
Did we even say the Patriots yet? I mean,
Patriots, they may take a quarterback. They may just take a one-year guy. It's a lot of stuff.
Do you have a way too early Super Bowl 56 prediction, or you going to hold off on that one?
I mean, do you want to do one?
I'm not going to officially predict it, but all I'm going to say is if Super Bowl 56 is Bucs versus Patriots, I don't know who I'm going to root for. I'm going to root for the Patriots. I'm going to root for the Patriots, but, there's no way I could possibly come out of that 100% happy or 100% sad, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean, but yeah, you'd have to root for your home team. But
I would. I'd probably wear a Brady jersey, but root for the Patriots. To be honest,
yeah, yeah.
it'd be. But anyways, I think depending on how the Patriots offseason works out, I want to say they have like the fourth most cap space in the league. It's something around there. If they get pieces and they have an
And they get
actual
their
quarterback,
pieces back who opted out,
mhm,
which were big pieces.
big, maybe a little bit like aging. Like
Definitely.
the thing is with like their biggest piece was losing Hightower probably, and Hightower looks like he's going to come back, which is good. But before he said that, or before there was any hint of that, it was possible that like almost all of the people that opted out were gonna retire. But it looks like we should get Hightower back. We should have like Chung back. I think Marcus Cannon. I think there's a solid chance he's probably. I don't think he's going to be back. He'll probably get cut or retire or something. Maybe if he gets restructured, then that would be good as well. But I mean, our offensive line is stacked now, or not stacked, but I mean, we got the guy from Onwenu or whatever, however you pronounce it. But yeah, but I think the Pats may win the division next year. I think it's a possibility.
I don't know.
They're going to have not an easy schedule, but they're going to have a better schedule than the Bills. They're going to have a better schedule than the Dolphins. They're playing a third place schedule. The AFC East isn't a great division. I think the Bills will take a step back. I think the Bills are taking a step back, and I've been kind of like a down on the Bills compared to you, and compared to like the general population for the most part. So I'm going to be continuing that, even though I still like the pieces they have, and I think I was definitely wrong on Josh Allen for the most part. But I think the Bills will take a step
If Allen
back.
can play like he did this year, next year, then they're the best team in the division. No matter what the Patriots do, because I think if he can be like an MVP type guy, then their team's good enough around him to the point where they can get wins. But I mean, I guess we'll just have to see what happens next year.
Yeah. Anyways, I mean, we've got a whole offseason to talk about all that and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah. If you stay till the end, appreciate it. We'll be back probably around like Thursday or something like that. But it's gonna
And
be.
for our next episode, we'll talk. I mean, Trevor Bauer signed with the Dodgers. We'll talk about that then.
Yeah, that's a big signing.
So-
I'm not exactly sure how the video is going to work out this episode. We're kind of like trying to get everything to work out, but we're kind of having like I don't know what's going on. But we're trying to figure that out, so it should be figured out for the future. Also, we're on like the Quinnipiac radio Tuesdays from 12 to 2, right?
Yeah, Tuesdays 12 to 2.
Tuesdays 12 to 2. So I believe if you just go to like, how do you get on it again? It's like QNN radio.
Just go WQAQ 98.1. Just search that online, and then it should pop up right there. It'll be Quinnipiac, and then you can do like listen live, or you can go click on shows, stuff like that. So as long as you type in WQAQ 98.1, it should pop up.
Yeah, I mean, and then we'll also be here on YouTube and Spotify as well. Also, social media is in the description. Drop a follow or whatever. We were both. I'm sure we. I'm pretty. Yeah, we were definitely both tweeting during the Super Bowl. We both will be tweeting, obviously, like anything like that, and even whatever, any NBA news, MLB news, even like maybe an NHL news or whatever. But yeah, I mean that's really it. Appreciate everyone staying to the end.